Okay. My name is Daphne, and this is my first PEGASUS conference. I want to thank Dawn for mentoring me for the past 4 or 5 months and suggesting that I attend this conference. So thank you, Dawn. It's been a really spiritual experience for me to be at PEGASUS, just meeting everyone, not just talking, but observing people and where people are coming from, what their journeys were, how they ended up in their health profession. And as a student just finishing undergrad, it's taught me a lot about kind of where I want to go in life. So I want to thank everybody here because you have inspired me in some way or another. I also want to say that kind of what I got as a reflection from this conference is that there's an inner advocate inside each one of us, and some of us express it, others don't. I express it through writing, but this conference kind of brought that back in me, and I think Michael said it best in the reflection this morning that to be an advocate, you kind of need to be a warrior, so you have to have the inner strength and the courage to carry your message, and PEGASUS did that for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your perspective, and thank you everybody here for the opportunity to sit in a circle like this and talk. I think this is a really great way of ending a conference like this. It's been almost about 5 years actually since I met Neil. Interestingly enough, I met him by accident at a conference in McMaster. And from that, I think that meeting, you talked about global health ethics and building partnerships, and that was the genesis for a lot of the work that I now find myself doing. I've been to every PEGASUS conference since. Well, the Transcending Borders was the first one, and it's really fascinating for me to reflect on where I was and where I am now. 5 years ago, I was an anthropology major, trying to figure out what is meant by partnerships and what is meant by engagement and community participatory research and work. And now I am, actually next week, I'm going back up to Sudbury to defend my master's, which focuses on participatory methodology in research. So for me, it's been an immensely personal journey, and it's so great to see everyone here, so many familiar faces from the past 4 or 5 years, and it's been great to be on this journey with you, and I look forward to more years of work and meeting new people in the years ahead. Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. My name is Eva Slowacki, and I'm the Executive Director of the Canadian Society for International Health. So CSIH has been involved with PEGASUS for many years now, but this is my first time coming. I've been the ED for a short time, and I'm really grateful to be here. And I'm grateful that CSIH continues to be involved with this exciting group. I was having second thoughts about even coming to PEGASUS. I was in Ottawa for a week of conferences listening to government officials talking about the SDGs and how we're going to be moving forward with them, and really positive messages, but they're all very, you start to question, like, this is all rhetoric. Is it really going to happen? But some of them, the main messages were that the SDGs, it's a global agenda. It's something that is, every country is a developing country. It applies not only overseas, but it applies to what we do at home. And the other issue that was really front and center is that we've got to stop working in silos. So when you hear the government officials talking about stopping to work, like not working in silos and how they're going to make an effort in this, you know, I thought that's really great ideas and stuff. And then, you know, I thought, I'm looking forward to seeing this happen. And when I came here to PEGASUS, I realized it's already happening. Everybody here is already doing this. So many of the presentations did talk about the work that's going on globally but locally, the Inuit and the climate change issues, the violence and public health issues and things like that. Those linkages are already being made. And what was really exciting is that this was coming from such a personal perspective. It wasn't just academic research. It was stuff that people had experienced directly and have been sharing their experiences on. And that was really exciting to experience. You talked about what's going to happen next. And I know this isn't very reflective, but I do want to make a plug for an event that CSIH is co-hosting in November, which is the 4th Global Health Symposium Conference in November. which is and the theme of that event is building resilient health systems for a changing world. And I'm really hoping that a lot of you will come and share your ideas at that international forum where you can share with a broader audience and experience that global interchange a lot more. So again, thank you for this inspiring experience, and I'm hoping that this is not my last event at PEGASUS, and that I'll be seeing many of you soon. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sharon Koivu. I'm a palliative care and addiction physician in London. This is my third conference, and I think I love this conference. The first thing I want to say that I'm thankful for is that this is a conference that has no drug company sponsorship. And whenever I go to a conference where they say that's not possible, I point out that this is possible, and it reminds me about that whole idea of it's possible when you imagine it and how wonderful that is. A few things I just want to say personally about this is that coming here gives me such a sense of renewal. And not just in the spiritual sense, I also renewed my membership for PGS, but it gives me a sense of connectivity and clarity. I think sometimes we get so busy that we can't see what the purpose of that busyness was. And I love coming here to find that focus, that clarity, and the sense of community, because none of us can do what we do without knowing so many other people that are doing so much amazing and wonderful work, and having the privilege and honor to sit in awe of so many wonderful people doing such amazing work just is such a inspiration and motivator that hopefully will sustain me to the next conference. So thank you, and thank you to Neil and all of you for being such an amazing part of this and all of our journeys.
I don't know how many umpteenth conferences this would be for me. Not enough PEGASUS ones. When I attend these events, I always sit there thinking, what can I do? What's going to happen as a result of me having been here? And that's a difficult question, you know. We get a lot of information, but we never really get a lot of direction as to what to do after we leave. One thing that this conference has brought to me that I never really thought about much before is the relationship with our politicians. It's said that everything of significance begins in philosophy and ends in politics. And all of the things that we've been talking about here will be decided by our politicians. So I'm going to change my approach. I have a new MP who actually knows something. And he listens. And he's lived in different parts of the world. And he has expressed interest in nuclear weapons. So I'm going to go back to him and say, Sven, what really do you want to do? How can I help you? I think that if I can somehow try to plug into his ideas and his agenda, and I think he's got them, that's one thing that I've thought about at this conference.
My name is Michael Clark. This is my first PEGASUS meeting, but it is, I don't know how many meetings you and I have had, Neil, but I just want to say thanks to you and thanks to the organizers for having me here. I think somebody's already mentioned the breadth of this gathering here, which extends from the personal to the political. And a little bit of my story, because it's too twisted, is in 1973, I, with CUSO, went to Sierra Leone for 3 years. And at the time, CUSO's tagline was an experience that lasts a lifetime. Well, that lifetime is ongoing. One of the products of that experience is sitting right beside me here, I met my life partner in Sierra Leone, and we have 4 kids, and they've been all raised in that kind of an environment to think big and dream and act accordingly. And so some of you weren't here on Friday, but I have a propensity for drawing imaginary graphs. And what I was thinking of this conference here, if I was to graph that conference, okay, so stick with me here. On the y-axis, we're going to put value. On the y-axis, we're going to put us, okay, all the people here, the population. On the x-axis, we're going to put value, not dollars, not even health, as I tried to do on Friday, but value. And if I was to draw that graph, what I'm getting a sense here is that we would all be lined up. We'd all be lined up around that optimum with a purpose, all right, with a desire and an understanding that the status quo is unacceptable and that the forces that are maintaining and perpetuating the status quo have to be challenged. That's what I'm getting, and it's lovely to walk into an environment like this without having to defend that perspective, where you don't have to make assumptions. So whether we want to admit it or not, this is a political gathering, and we have made political decisions and thought politically. Just as you were saying, we have to act now in a way that we challenge that status quo and we make change. And it's up to us, it's up to our kids, it's up to every single one of us, right, who have that commitment to make this a better place, which we can do and should do to suit. Merci.
I'm Steve Farrakoutis, my first PEGASUS. I'm a family physician, here sort of wearing the hat of Canadian Physicians for Aid and Relief. Just a really great gathering of ideas, very interesting perspectives, great talks. One thing that I'm noticing is we're sitting in a circle, and we are probably amongst the more engaged amongst our peers. And I just want to put out a challenge and a comment, is that these ideas are great to share amongst ourselves, but there's a broader group out there, and we need to find a way of getting the message out to them. So I'm not sure what the answer to that is. I think we all go out and we speak amongst our peers and colleagues, but I think if we can collectively find a way to get more people engaged, that points to political action as well, then I think then we can really start to make some differences. Thanks.
I didn't want to speak yet, but I waited 10 seconds. You're supposed to wait 10 seconds when you ask a question for people to answer. But I'm Thomas. I'm a resident in public health. I think I've met a lot of you through the conference. I wanted to reflect on the number of people here and the impact, because it's something that had been bothering me throughout the conference and throughout the weekend. You know, we listened to plenary after plenary, panel after panel. We saw Bruce Coburn and Naomi Klein last night, and I kept thinking, and it kept hitting me, that why aren't there more people here? You know, I don't know what the total registration was in the end, about 125 or 50 or something like that. And I kept thinking, it's so sad that more people aren't having this experience. But, having heard some of the reflections so far and looking back, I really don't think that matters. And I think that the impact is in the impact on individual people, not on the number of people, and that those small impacts can have a bigger difference. And so it reminded me of a story that my mother told me when I was really young, and bear with me if you've heard it before, but it's about an old man walking down the beach. And he's walking down the beach, and the tide has gone out. And with the tide having gone out, the beach is littered with starfish that have been abandoned on the beach. I'm seeing some nods, so I think some people have heard this story before, but it bears reminding, because I think my mom tells me it about every month or two when I'm overwhelmed and can't sort of get perspective on things. But The old man walking down the beach eventually sees this little girl who's by the shore, and she's picking up starfish, and she's throwing starfish in the water. And he goes up to her and he says, "Little girl, what are you doing?" And she looks at him like he's a complete idiot and says, "Saving the starfish, of course." And he says, "Yeah, but look at all the starfish. There are thousands, there are millions of starfish on the beach. How are you possibly going to make a difference?" And she picks up a starfish and throws it back in the water and says, "I think I sure made a difference to that one." And so I think if we can keep in perspective that even though there weren't perhaps as many as there could have been here, and even though perhaps our mission has sort of just begun and there's a lot more work to be done, think about the individual relationships you made, think about the individual impacts you've made, and hopefully you can bring those forward.
I actually am gaining a lot in between with the silences too, as we reflect on what people have said. And so I was just enjoying that. And I was enjoying looking in each of your faces and seeing that over the weekend in some way we've become closer. And so that has meaning in itself. So I was wondering, Dorothy, could I ask you a question about with the circles? I think that more people are going to speak now. People we're still waiting. But when does a circle finish in your political circle or a healing circle? Could you tell us how a group has a sense of finishing, of closure?
I don't think it's going to take as long as it could take, or how long it would take traditionally, when I talked about using this in the political sense of how we used to use it, which I can appreciate the comments about politics and being involved or needing to be involved, because as someone said, it is here, we are here. As individuals, my understanding of politics is being a helper in whatever way, shape, or form you can be, and that's politics to me. And so when you ask how long can it take, in the traditional sense, it could take a few days. We're not here for a few days. And so when you have a sense of people being finished, when we're in this kind of atmosphere, when I have the sense that no one else necessarily wants or has the need to say anything, I'll generally ask if there is, and then, well, if there isn't, then I'll close the circle, which is different than the healing circle that I talked about, what we call a healing circle, but is also a talking circle. They use it in restorative justice, where everyone gets to have a say. It goes completely around the circle, and everyone gets to hold the talking stick or whatever. Sometimes they use the eagle feather. It goes around and everybody gets to hold it and use it. And when everybody has gotten their turn, then that's the end of the circle. So today we're trying to follow more of the political sense of it. And so we'll continue on until Neil says, I think it's about time we were closing up. And so that people will know, because very much so, Neil, like what you said, those pauses, those silences, they're meant to be, they're meant for us to reflect. That's what this is all about and what it's for. And so we will be doing that. And so then when you go home, you can take that home with you. It's part of the way we teach also, using the silences. We're an oral society. We still are. We still can be. We still have lots today that we write, but we still are very much so an oral society. And so you take those pauses, you take those times to think about what you're going to do or where you're going, and what you can add to whatever anybody else is saying. You give yourself that time. Because if you're automatically jumping in, sometimes you're not thinking. You're not taking that time to pause to think. My understanding is when you take that pause to think and allow the thoughts to come through, that's whatever the mystery is that is out there that's helping you. It's bringing those thoughts through you. And so then you can pose those questions or pose those ideas. Let it come through you, as long as you take the time to take the pause and do that. And so that's what I see happening here, and I'm happy with it, actually, personally, because it's working. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing. So we'll continue on this way, okay? So anyone else who's ready, they can do that.
I grew up in Calgary, and I remember going to powwows as a child, and it has always had a huge impact on me. So I wasn't going to speak, and again, you have inspired me to speak. So thank you for being here and for sharing some of the wisdom that I still remember as a child, that I remember I wish I had known more about. And I still very much feel that we all can still be learning so much more than what we have. What came to me when you were speaking was, again, the importance of silos and the importance of remembering all of our own biases. I think, as some of you are aware, certainly my first Pegasus, I was sitting here reflecting. Part of the real reason I'm here is 1989, 88, the man with the amazing memory. I met Neil as a med student in Tanzania. So we were both in Dar es Salaam. And so again, it's interesting, several decades later, to find us both sitting here. His pathway went one way, and my pathway, still in my heart, went on a similar path, but through a different path, in that I joined the Canadian military. For me, again, it's very, I'm still processing. There's been parts that are, for me personally, healing to be here, partly because even though my heart's always been in this place, many of my interactions with my fellow Canadians have been that I don't belong in this circle and that I have no right to be in this circle, even though this is my value set and this is what I care about and I want to make a difference in. I still remember very clearly, I'm in Ottawa now, but I remember very clearly one of the first times I was in uniform in Toronto, which now is many years ago. And I took the subway, and I happened to come up on a political event, and there were, I'll say it was an NDP event, and I was spat on. I was spat on as a Canadian physician who happened to be in uniform, and I had no understanding of why. And little did they know I had voted for them that year. I then had a chance through many different times and places, different countries, having so many people tell me how lucky I was to be a Canadian, and I fully understood how lucky I was to be a Canadian. I had a year in the States where, when I was in uniform in the States, I would get pulled aside routinely by strangers saying, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for what Canadians did in Vietnam in helping us. Thank you for what Canadians do alongside some of the missions with the US. And I'd never, ever been thanked by a Canadian. Ever at that stage. This is before Afghanistan. So for me, having retired now for a few years, still to be here and be welcomed and to be allowed to have a voice and to be able to say we're not evil. We're actually all on the same side, and perhaps if we can recognize some of that, at least in a Canadian context, especially on healthcare, we're all trying to make the world a better place in our own ways. And so I just wanted to again say thank you to everyone in the circle I've had a chance to meet and talk to, and for allowing me the voice to say I belong here, caring about peace and security and all of these things as well, because I very much care.
Hi, everybody. I just want to say a few words regarding my experience here at Pegasus. I was a volunteer, first-time volunteer for the conference, and my first time attending such an event. Being a young professional trying to make my way through life and trying to find my direction, it was very rewarding to come to a conference with such like-minded people, where I had constantly had such thoughts that were exactly what we discussed about throughout the 3-day conference, but never had an audience or never had been around such a wonderful group of people that believed the same, that had the same values, that believed in the same values that I do. So it was very motivating coming here, thinking that I was not in the place. I work in clinical research and have very limited experience in global health, but it was very encouraging coming here and seeing that the work that everybody here is doing aligns very well with some of the work that I'm trying to go towards. And I'd like to say thank you for everybody for coming, and thank you for having me. I'll be coming next year, and hopefully as having a poster up or something like that so I can contribute. So thank you again.
My name is Rob Chase, and this will be my second conference 2 years ago here. Found it very valuable, and it extends the life of relationships and experiences and our paths. For me, going back to first year medical school when in Hamilton, the chapter of Canadian Physicians for Prevention of Nuclear War opened up, and the mentorship that's 30 years in the making is really deeply felt. And 10 years ago or more, when Neil and I were working together with a curriculum for a Peace Through Health course at McMaster, the sense of working with students and the examples of personal careers and lives and experiences, how informative and insightful that is for people in walking a few steps behind you in a career and a life of asking questions and becoming wiser as we go through. So that resonates very deeply for me at this conference, and I look forward to more and different venues. For some who I've met dozens of times now, we meet in other parts of the world on different projects and different agendas. What's nice is to tap back into the sense of community, respect, and thinking outside the box, because our lives are perpetually put in boxes, and I think all of us resist that in some ways or have to find a balance. But this conference, I found it particularly interesting to meet Shauna and learn about work with intravenous drug users, to meet Fiona and the other, Mike McIsaac, I think, working with prison. Everybody has their reality, whether it's in Congo or Metro Toronto, working with refugees, and it is so much the same work. And so we have a lot in common, and to have a space where we can meet and share and learn and be inspired and curious, it takes us out of our paths for a bit and makes a lot of. So I look forward to other opportunities, and if there's changes in the format or the communications in between, I think what I feel is the relationships that really count here are ones that I may see once every 2 years, once every 5 years, but it's 30 years and counting now, so it's the quality is immense, and good work happens through people and the energy of working together with others. So thank you very much, Neil, for all this, and everyone.
Sorry, I've already had my chance. I'm going to be really quick, but I just wanted to bring up something last time that had happened from the dialogue was, the idea of creating a network or continuing the dialogue and discussion. And Pakisa, you mentioned earlier trying to have more regional events, and Neil and I have had some discussions. I've had some discussions with other people too about this notion of this PEGASUS brand that stands for people who are committed to sort of social justice issues of intersectionality between peace, global health, sustainability, people who care for the arts and music and video, people who care for, personal interactions and dialogue with others. And I think we should, as a group, try to think about how we carry that message forward and how we keep the momentum and energy and inspiration that came from this conference going. So I wasn't going to propose a solution, but just to put it out there for reflection. And sorry for speaking twice.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sergio Lopata. I'm a family doctor in Stratford, Ontario. And first of all, I wanted to thank you very much for explaining the talking stick. I've seen it before, but it was beautifully explained. And the thing that really touched me was the idea of what you said of the tree, of the truth that's representative of this. And I think this whole conference sort of explains, to truth speaking. I've been a physician for about 30 years and was involved with PGS it's as a second-year medical student also, and with CAPE probably in the 1990s. And part of my job, I think, and everything else is I'm a victim of compassion fatigue. And every once in a while, especially with environmental issues, I get beaten down and flattened, and then PEGASUS comes along, and it's that spark that sort of gets you thinking again. And one of the things I find most enriching about this is, as a physician, I go to several conferences, and it's not, I don't know how to put it in a nice way, but there are other physicians, so you just spin and spin and spin in the same vortex. The beautiful thing about PEGASUS is that there's physicians, sociologists, epidemiologists, people that work in the field, and then you're getting a perspective, a much richer perspective of what is actually happening in the world and how you can become a part of that. The numbers, I was also sort of a little bit surprised that there were less people this time than the last time, which I thought it was an evolving process, which I'm sure it is. And I was involved with one group called the 100th Monkey program that was in the early 1990s at the nuclear test site in Nevada. And the principle of that, it's a sociological phenomenon of feeding monkeys on disparate islands. And the process was dropping sweet potatoes, I think it was, and they wouldn't eat them because they would be covered in sand. And one monkey started washing them and eating it and doing it for its offspring. Then other monkeys did, and then suddenly the phenomenon spread to all the neighboring islands who had not seen this, and all of a sudden all the monkeys were washing their sweet potatoes. So I think the small numbers are significant in that they grow and cause that phenomenon worldwide that I think is evolving, and we hopefully will be part of that. So thank you again for keeping the spirit going. Yeah.
I'm going to be really short, and I know Neil's not going to want me to do this because this is supposed to be about reflections about the conference, and that's what I spoke about at first. But I really want to speak about Neil. Two things sparked me listening to the person next to me speak about the transformation and welcoming that she felt here. And I think that who Neil is and his spirit has allowed certain things to occur that sometimes can't occur. For me personally, Neil took me through helping for me to look at my own biases and my own struggle as a humanitarian and as a Jewish woman trying to sort out how I felt about Palestine. And I was afraid to look at it, and I didn't know how to look at it. And Neil had an opening, non-judgmental heart, which helped me to look 100% at what was the truth and what I wanted to see. And I feel that that attitude is the attitude that allows people who, we've spoken a lot about, well, I find like-minded people here, but we also want to open our doors to those who may be on the edge of understanding what we're seeing, but may be frightened because they may not feel welcomed because we're so strong in what we feel and what we think. And I think that Neil has been a huge force in being able to open doors, and that we have a lot to learn from him, or I did. And hearing you speak just reignited that for me, and I really wanted to thank you, Neil, for being who you are, and I hope that we can take this spirit that you have forward, because I think that that is what's going to be part of helping bring others who may not be as passionate as us to come to see and understand. So thank you for providing the space.
I also didn't want to pick up the mic again, but I've got to say, as I look through here, I actually see all of you as mentors in different ways, and some, I think some of you know how, and in other ways you may not know how, what you've brought to me, those whom I have known. And I think that there are some other people here whom I know less, and I see us as a collective moving ahead. I don't see this as being I may have actually been key in the last couple of conferences, and I could see that things may not have gone on without one individual. But I see this as something that is really growing. We have a lot of leadership in our group, and I think that part of it is people starting to see a lot more connections. They're feeling individual connections, as you say, that people from inner cities to overseas work and things around sustainability, and so people are seeing the connections, and they're seeing other people that they really like working with, and they're thinking about, it could be something like writing a paper that even when, for instance, Sharon mentioned about fossil fuel addiction, which people use, but using the stages of change, and then people are saying, oh, I'd love to help her on this paper. So I see this as, it's the collective that is really moving things forward, and I see leaders, and Thomas, of course, is one of them, but I see many other leaders, young and old, here who are going to move PEGASUS itself forward. And as we start, I think that we're starting to think that PEGASUS needs to be a bit of a coalition, and trying to think of how elements are of the coalition. So I think we've tried to really have communication in between, but now people are talking about how we work together, whether it be Jan and the group that was working on policy recommendations, and other people thinking about advocacy. So I think that we probably need a bit of, we need to keep our communication and our relationships. We also need a time for all of us to reflect, and we want to be moving wherever we are moving together. And I know that sometimes when we feel included, there are also some people who feel excluded, like when we're feeling good about ourselves and our relationships, and there's some people who may not have had the opportunity or may have felt shy about becoming part of this, and I want to make sure as we move forward that we include people that that some of us may not know. And I hope that everybody has actually been able to see one or two people, old friends or new friends, and so it's ideas, but it's also those friendships that I hope that people have been able to see themselves moving further ahead in small ways or big ways. And I think that's how we're going to start to move ahead as a group. And I personally don't have any particular agenda about how I think we should be moving forward with PEGASUS. I'd like to see us communicating so we can try to develop exactly in what ways we're going to move ahead. So is this an okay, do people feel this is an okay time and way of closing? Because I hate that I just picked up the stick and now I get a sense that maybe we are closer to a time of closing as we've reflected on this. And I found that each of the parts that I got, and I only got little snippets of different things, but I found each part so rich, and we're going to have something recorded. We have to figure out how we disseminate and what we disseminate, and so in what form, and whatever we do will be with the permission of everybody, and making sure, whether it be from sharing your email address to sharing your talk, we want to make sure that everybody is comfortable with what they share. But we're going to use the next couple of months to try to figure out where we move ahead. So the people who are in this room, some people who came only for their own workshop and then left, some people who were part of Pegasus last time but for some reason couldn't make it. We want to keep everybody a part of things as we move the next steps. But I can see in this room, as we saw last time when we closed, part of us, I think part of us doesn't want to close right now because we see this as being a bit of a space between this and the next time that we're able to get together. But I see this as being actually a beautiful moment in some ways too, because we, this time I'm trying to reflect on what was different than previous times, what can be different, and I guess we'll have the moment to hold, whether we have something in Kinshasa next time, or whether we do regional things within Canada, or some combination, or individuals just take it upon themselves to do something and just involve a few individuals around. I think that whatever happens, I think will be happening for a purpose. Dorothy talked about really more the listening, that our ancestors, the spirits, really, when we listen, that we are moving forward and taking their messages. So I want to pass this on to Dorothy to close for us, if that's okay. So thank you.
That officially puts that to rest for us. Thank you, Neil. That was a good way to close with the talking stick. What I have to do, what I was given tobacco to help with the process of opening, and part of helping with the process of opening is closing. And in that process, Peter was able to come and help us open. He wasn't able to be here to help with the closing, and so I have that responsibility. And that responsibility is just to allow those of our ancestors, those who came to help us, those who have been sitting with us, to let them know it's done, it's finished. They can go home too. And so that's what I'm doing here right now, just letting them know that. And so they'll go to wherever they need to go, just as much as we'll go to wherever we need to go in a safe way, that we'll have a safe journey home. And so that's all that the closing is about, but it's just to make sure that they know that. We may know that, but they need to know that too. And so that's the closing that I'm doing. Just so you're aware of that, whatever the connections are that you have with your ancestors, with whomever the great mystery is for you, you can thank them in your own way for coming and being with you, for sharing with you, and for allowing you to share with everybody else that's here in your own way. Just being here is sharing. So, miigwech for that. Miigwech for allowing us to come and share our way of inviting people to come to our lands, to come to our territories. Miigwech for that. There was a time in the not too distant past when that wasn't so. So miigwech for that, Neil. Really do appreciate that. And I'm so glad that my expression of what is here allowed someone such as yourself to be able to speak. Because that's what it's meant for, right? For everybody to have that voice. And so I think I'm finished now. I've done what I need to here. Yes, I hope to come back whenever something is happening, and I liked it. It's good. I really appreciated it. I appreciated being invited. But it's done now. So miigwech to everybody for coming, and again, miigwech.